Hello and welcome to another interview with Lazy Wealth Creation. And this particular interview is really interesting for me because the number of skilled workers coming over to the UK is growing due to demand, due to the need of those particular skills. I will say in one sector in particular is the healthcare sector, whether that's the hospitals, whether that's care homes, nursing homes, or domiciliary care. The amount of skilled workers that we need within those specialisms in IT, infrastructure, construction, hospitality, it seems to be growing despite us having lots of people in the UK who perhaps seem unemployed. But we do need to rely on a lot of overseas skills to come into this country to bolster what we need as an economy. So I'm joined by one of my special guests today, Nish Ranganathan from Sri Lanka. Originally, Nish, is that right? From Sri Lanka?
Yes, I am. Yeah. It's actually my name is Nishanthan. So you
Nishanthan Ranganathan from Sri Lanka, but has been working here in the UK. How long have you been working here for, Nish?
nearly 2 years now.
So 2 years in the UK. So
Yes.
I bet you missed that weather over there.
I know, I do. Yeah.
So today we're going to be talking through some of the wishes, hopes, dreams for overseas workers, things that we can perhaps help them to learn about or help them to avoid as well in some cases. And Nish is going to fire some questions at me to see if we can help any people who are overseas workers come into the UK, what sort of advice that we can hopefully give them based on our experience working with lots of other overseas workers. So, Nish, we're going to come over to you now. What type of work do you do, first of all, before, because people might be interested in what work you do right now?
Well, yeah, I'm into the care sector right minute. Yeah, I'm working as a care service coordinator. I'm managing about more than 50 number of staff from a different part of the world.
Wow. And,
Yeah.
and doing that here in the UK, right?
Yes, it's in UK. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And how's the journey going so far? Is everything smooth and easy or not so much?
Well, as you know, care is not easy. Yeah. as a, it's a hot topics nowadays.
Mm.
Care is a very, very uh, busy work, all the time. It's growing. So we can't predict our work. So I'm keeping myself all the time busy with the work here. I'm enjoying it anyway.
Would you agree or disagree that there is lots of opportunity for overseas workers here in the UK?
Yeah, I do agree, of course, as I'm an overseas worker. Yes.
So obviously, within the care sector, we know that some people have come to work here in the UK and have been less fortunate than you. So I don't know if you want to kick us off. Ask me a question about anything to do with arriving in the UK, like things to look out for, anything you like.
Well, as I am an overseas worker, yeah, when I came to UK, I had to face a lot of problems, problem in the sense how to get into the UK weather first, yeah, how to adapt myself. And the second thing, how to keep myself away from the high volume of scam, which really scared me because I thought our countries are very famous for scam. But when I came to UK, I realized that's a lie. I can see the biggest scam happening in UK in terms of different things. What I went through was especially the driving license, um, and getting a housing and buying a car insurance, and there are a lot more. So I would like to speak about the driving licenses and buying a car insurances. There are a lot of scam going on at the minute. How you would like to help as a overseas workers when they are going through these problems?
Okay, quite a lot of things to unpack there,
Mhm.
all very valid as well, I might say. And I agree with you. When people first arrive in the UK, they're arriving in a strange place with perhaps a language that they may not be massively familiar with. They might have a good association with, but not massively familiar. So it's not their first language.
Yeah.
And one of the things we naturally do as creatures who are very sociable human beings, we try to find people who remind us of ourselves. So you come from Sri Lanka, right?
Yes.
Might be very normal for a person who comes from Sri Lanka, the first thing they do to find other people from Sri Lanka in the UK. And that
Yeah.
would make a lot of sense because you can then say, oh, I'm new, I need some help. And you trust that because you have this familiar bond, you might even be related in some way as well. That you think, oh, this person might have my best interests at heart. They might try to help me, and so on and so forth. And that does have some advantages in terms of getting you started. However, very often what I've found with, particularly with my staff, is there are people within those communities who will prey on them. And what I mean is, you mentioned something about driving a moment ago. On social media in particular, you will have somebody that will contact you or others, of course, when they come over and say, "Oh, hi, brother, hi, sister," which is a very common way
Yeah.
to introduce yourself, particularly from countries like India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, for those who may not know. Hi, brother, hi, sister. I can get you really cheap car insurance because, of course, in Sri Lanka or India, car insurance is incredibly cheap, maybe £50 a whole year, maybe, which is great if you are living in the UK, because of course we pay a lot more than that. So what they do, these very sophisticated scam artists, really, they contact you via WhatsApp, via Instagram, TikTok, other social media platforms like this and say, I can get you really cheap car insurance. You give them all of the details and they say, oh yeah, I can do your car insurance for £800 a year, which for context, if you're a new driver in the UK with a foreign driver's license, you're going to be looking about £3,000 for a year, maybe more, for depending on the type of vehicle you get. So someone's saying to you, I can save you over £2,000 straight away. That's a great thing to be saving. But what happens is they actually do insure the vehicle, but they'll insure them on a fleet policy or on a group policy of which you are not the named driver. So on paper, the insurance policy looks legitimate. You can buy the car insurance from them. You can tax your vehicle using it. However, when the police stop you and say, what's your name? And let's say it was yourself, Nish. You say, oh, my name's Nishanthan Ranganathan. They do the insurance check and the insurance isn't in your name.
I know.
Now, what happens is the police will seize your vehicle. They will take it from you. It will go into a compound, which you have to pay money and interest daily for returning that vehicle back to you because you have to prove that you have insurance, which of course you don't have. And then you get a court summons, so because you're going to get prosecuted for not having car insurance, even though you legitimately did buy what you thought was a real car insurance policy. And some common things to look out for here is when they send the documents over to you, they will look like they come from legitimate providers. Direct Line, Admiral, Tesco Insurance, all very legitimate providers. However, the email address will be something like Admiral123x at gmail.com. Now, straight away, we know that's a scam because Admiral don't use Gmail. Admiral have got their own email address. The other things that you can check on the documentation is the font of the text where your name and address will look very different to the text in the rest of the documents. It will look, say, in black ink versus dark grey ink, and the font itself will be different, those sorts of things. But my sort of advice from an overseas worker's perspective would be don't buy any type of vehicle insurance from somebody who you don't know who is contacting you from any sort of social media site. We know that car insurance in particular is very expensive, but don't be tempted because you will end up losing your car. You may also end up getting prosecuted criminally and getting a fine, which of course we have some experience of that happening, and we don't want that to happen to anyone else. And then you've got to start all over again with a new car insurance provider, with a new car, and you have to pay again. So please bear that in mind. So hopefully that's enough to help you with car insurance.
I know it
Uh,
it was really helpful. Yeah.
In terms of buying cars, a lot of people that we've experienced when they come to the UK, they find the cheapest possible car that they can, and usually it's much less than £1,000. It's usually between sort of £400 and £600. And I'm not saying you can't get cars for £600 in the UK. You certainly can, but will they last you for 1 year? Highly unlikely. So when you're looking for cars, you must check if it has an MOT, a safety certificate, which you can check online for free. If you just type in to Google check vehicle MOT or check car MOT, it will take you to a website. You insert the details. It's very quick and easy. That doesn't guarantee the car is safe, of course. It just means that it does have an MOT. Try to look for cars that are available through a dealer initially. I know they're more expensive, but at least a lot of dealers give you a warranty of maybe a month, maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months if you're buying a little bit more of an expensive car. So really, I would suggest planning or budgeting for that rather than just trying to find a cheap car where people are going to um, give you a vehicle that you might need to replace in a month's time anyway, or it's going to break down, and then you've got no reliable transport. So that's the second thing I would say about driving. And the third is going to be about the rules about driving in the UK. And I need to really drill down on this because it's impacted our service as well. When a person comes to the UK and they have a driver's license from another country, and again, I'll pick on Sri Lanka because that's where you're from, you can legally drive a vehicle in the UK, provided you've got insurance and a safety certificate, using your Sri Lankan driver's license. But you only have 1 year from the date of your visa issue. It used to be called the BRP, but now they've moved it to e-visa. So from the date of the e-visa, you have 1 year in which you can use your driver's license legally in the UK. After that year, you must get a UK driver's license if you're planning on staying here. Now, there's a lot of people who have this myth where they say, oh, no, no, just fly back home, get an international driving license card for £20 or £30, and then you can drive for another year, no problem. This is completely untrue. It's totally false. And people will arrange back home to get that license sent over to you and they'll charge you a fee. Do not do this. It's a complete scam because if the police pull you over, they will ask you for your license. If something else to tell you about this actually happened to one of our staff recently. A police officer pulled them over, asked to see her driver's license, and they provided their UK provisional license, which you're not allowed to drive on in the
Mhm.
UK, instead of providing her home country driver license. Actually, I think she was from Sri Lanka as well. Instead of providing her Sri Lankan driving license, which is perfectly fine to drive on, she thought, oh, I'll give the police officer my UK provisional license because that's better. And she ended up having her car taken off her, put in a compound, and it took us 3 days to get that car back to her. But she had to pay, I think it was £250 to get the car released because she failed to follow the correct protocols, which is to show the police her Sri Lankan driver's license. So please bear that in mind. And that finally, from a driving perspective, brings me on to getting a UK license. There are many people within overseas communities here in the UK that will say, oh, I'm a professional driving instructor and you only have 3 months until your license expires. So give me, I don't know, £1,000 and I will teach you how to drive. But they are not registered professional driving instructors. I must say, it's not a legal requirement to be a professional driving instructor in the UK. I could go in my car and teach anybody how to drive right now, as long as I had the learner stickers and the right insurance to do that. However, what I would recommend is you check in two things. Number one is the DVLA website to check for approved driving instructors in the area. And the other thing is to ask them if they are members of the Advanced Driving Institute, ADI, which a lot of driving instructors are also members of. Because again, I don't want people throwing good money after bad because they get scammed by fake driving instructors, basically, who don't actually teach you how to drive. So I guess from a scam point of view, I know it sounds terribly negative, but these are really important things to be mindful of when you first arrive in the UK because, it can end up costing you several £1,000s. And then that's just driving. I don't know if you've ever had any experience of this yourself, Nish, but there are lots of people who have promised people work from overseas. They come over, they knock on the door, no work.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you know anybody who that's happened to at all, or does that have you not had that experience?
Well, I would say it's happened to me personally. So
Oh,
it'd be really helpful for those who are listening and watching through this. So the first I when I arrived to UK, I got into scam. So that's why I just want to talk about the scam at very first.
right.
I don't want this to happen to anybody else.
Yeah. Okay. Really good point then.
Yeah.
So this has actually happened. I agree with you, particularly in care, because care is a very easy entry-based job. You don't need a degree. You don't need a professional registration anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
You can become a carer by caring for your own parents in your home country, and that is very valid experience to come and work here in the UK. You can use that experience. However, there are these types of people, we call them agents, who in home countries they will say, "Oh yes, I can guarantee you I'll get you a job in the UK working for a care company, and you just got to pay me usually a significant amount of money. We're not talking about, £50. We're talking about tens of thousands of pounds typically. 10, 20, sometimes 30, 40,000 pounds, which is illegal, number one. And you should never pay that because there are agencies out there, care providers out there that will advertise the vacancies for free. So that's number one. Number two, when you are looking at an employer, it's very important you don't go through those agents in your home countries because they will not tell you who the employer is until you've paid them all of the money in lastminute.com. So look for reputable employers, look at their website, look and see if they have CQC, Care Quality Commission registration. That's very important. And also if they have a grade. And the reason why I say that is because what happened in the last few years is lots of people were setting up fake care agencies with the sole purpose of attracting overseas workers.
Mm.
And they were charging between 10 and 40,000 pounds just to bring these people over, and there was actually no work. So although it looks genuine from the outside, when you arrive, it's a tiny little office in a maybe an industrial estate. They've got no clients, they've got no manager, they've got no software, no uniforms, and all of a sudden you realize, oh goodness me, I've spent thousands of pounds to come here with no job. Now, I know that some people will come from overseas and will be happy with that, and then they can go off and do what they want. But many people come to the UK because they really want to make a go of things and they want to be successful. And, that's part of our goal. So when you are looking for work, go to a reputable company. They will have their own recruitment website anyway. Check that they have a grade from the registered regulator like the Care Quality Commission or Care Inspectorate Wales. You can look them up on the regulator's website and check that they're genuine. That's another thing you can do. And check to see if they've got any customer feedback on Google. I mean, that's really easy to do. You type in their company on Google and check the reviews. I know in our company, we employ over 95% of our staff are from overseas. And some of them have left reviews. We have videos on our website where people are talking about how they enjoy their work. So look for testimonials and things like this. And of course, if you know anybody, even better. That's some of the recommendations I would give. But please don't give agents in country tens of thousands of pounds for an employer that may not even exist. Or if they do exist, have no actual work for you. because that will really put your visa in jeopardy when if the Home Office catch up and say, oh, this isn't a real employer, so we're going to cancel your visa. So you may have spent, let's say, 20, 30,000 pounds on a visa that's going to get cancelled on you anyway. And then you're in a really difficult situation because you can't get housing without a visa. You can't get another job unless you've got a visa or they've got sponsorship to give you. So these are some of the things that are minefields for overseas workers that I would recommend they be very mindful of and be careful of. And if in doubt, just check those websites that I've told you about, the CQC, the CIW, Google reviews. These are all things that can tell you if it's a genuine place or not.
Yeah.
From your point of view, Nish, like what happened to you? Because you just said it happened to me. So just talk us through it because I'm interested. I'm talking about experience of other people, but you're here, you have the real experience. So tell us what actually happened to you.
Well, I have had shared this with all my colleagues, all my known people in Sri Lanka when I went on my holiday, to be honest. It's because I have seen lots and lots Sri Lankan are coming over here. And when they come here, most of them, I would say the majority of them, they don't have any work. As you said, there is no company exist. So there are a lot of companies now shut down by the Home Office and by CQC, if they are exist already, is because of the fraudulent they do. So what happened to those overseas staff now? They got to lose their job and their sponsorship, and they're looking for another sponsorship. So that's exactly happening nowadays. That's a burning issue right now
Yeah.
going on in UK. So what happened for me actually when I came in 2023, the very first day I was very, very enthusiastic to see my very first employer in UK. Yeah. Then I went to see them. I mean, before that, sorry, I couldn't even find the office, the postcode they have given to me, which is the not the office, the postcode. So when I tried phoning them and they said, okay, can you call me back in another 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, 3 hours, 4 hours? The whole day is gone like that. Finally, I got to meet them in the evening, 4 o'clock. And I found the particular company in a box room where I can't even get myself inside. And I need to wait for the person to come out of the office to let myself inside. Then I realized, no, Nishi, you are in the wrong place. You got to go, mate. You know? So I decided to quit on the same day because there is no work. No. The very first impression when I met the staff there, she said, why did you come to this company? Then I said, oh my goodness, what have I done? Where I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Found I had a right interview. I follow all the protocols, everything. Nothing I did wrong. But still, I have no idea why they're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awful as a real lived experience, and
Yeah.
from my point of view, Nish, as somebody who obviously is from the UK and has full citizenship rights here in the UK, for me, I can't imagine how difficult that must have been for you coming to a new country for the first time.
Yeah.
And you've already been scammed by the sound of it, like almost immediately when you've come ready to work, very clearly ready to work, and now there's no work for you. So what did that sort of put you through from a site? I mean, did you come with family? Did you have to provide for people? Like what was the next sort of in your thought process? How did that work?
Fortunately, I didn't bring my family, it's because I'm a bit aware that these scams are going on in UK before I left the country. But I
Right,
didn't think that will happen to me.
right.
So what I did was I came alone. Then
Okay.
when I came here, I already paid for my rooms and everything, accommodation is done. And I paid for my car. I was ready for everything. I was really ready to work on the second day of my arrival.
Wow.
Right. So what happened when I realized there is no work for me, and I know there are plenty of work opportunities in care sector.
Hmm.
What I did was I applied in a 24 hours. As per I remember, I applied over 50 jobs.
Wow.
Then I got interviews for over 20. Then I choose some companies and I work for them. I worked for two companies in past. And unfortunately, they didn't have sponsorship to offer me. Then I genuinely work for them. Then finally, I found a job where they can sponsor me, where they recognize my work, where they recognize my experience and my qualities. I'm happy now. I'm in a position to advise staff, advise the overseas people now. So I'm happy for it.
And I think I remember you saying before that did you say the title is a care service coordinator? Is that what you
Yes,
said?
yes.
Obviously, I don't want you to name any companies, but can you just sort of tell us, for those of us that don't know, because I understand what that job is, but can you tell us what is that role? What does it entail for people who don't understand?
Yeah. The care service coordinator who involved in daily, day-to-day management of staff. I'm liaising with local authorities and staff in daily basis.
Hmm,
So which means I am the one who do the rotering for the staff.
right.
So when we get a new client, we assess and I realize which staff will suit for that client based on their experience and their qualification and training they have and allocate them in order to deliver the excellent care.
So it sounds like you've sort of landed on your feet here, although you've got off to a really quite bad start with not a genuine employer, and you said you sort of went around a couple of different services, which is great. But now, you, I mean, did you start in that job as a care service coordinator, or did you do something else first? Like, how did that happen?
Absolutely not. I started as a carer because
Oh,
I was ready to work, I was ready because I am mentally fit to work for that. Mentally, physically, I was ready.
right.
So I gained some experience from the previous companies, which helped me to land on my feet on this company and started as a carer. I did crazy hours because I'm willing to do because I'm alone. I'm happy. I am alone. I don't need to look after my family in UK. So I'm free to work 7 days a week, anytime.
Wow.
What I did was I took that opportunity to develop my skill and experience.
Yeah.
And then management recognized me and they promote me as a team leader
Right.
with a lot of experience and the training being given to me. Yeah. So what I did was, as a team leader, I was managed to spot check the staff when they're delivering the care. I do my spot checks, I do my observations, how the care is going on. When I do all these things, management realize this person can't fit for the service coordinator position. And then they gave me a lot of management trainings. There are a lot of stuff in it in terms of managing rotering, in terms of managing staff, in terms of answering phone calls, in terms of managing high quality of care, the customer care. So there are a lot of things being injected on me.
Right. It
So
sounds like an awful lot of responsibility. And you said 2023 you came to the UK, I think, from before, right?
yeah,
So already in just a couple of years, really, that's all we're talking about. You've climbed the sort of the work career ladder, but also you've got responsibility for other people. I know you said rotoring there and answering the phones and speaking to clients as well. So, you've got an awful lot of responsibility for a person who's only been in the UK for 2 years. I mean, what advice, if there is any, would you give a person who's coming from overseas and looking for opportunities, like maybe what you've done, where you've escalated very, very quickly in an employment perspective? What advice would you give somebody who'd done that?
well, I can see most of the overseas worker come here as a carer, even though they were in big positions back in their countries, because they are taking this as a route to come, easy to come. Also, as you said, there is not a lot of education required for this particular job. But I would say, as a carer, working as a carer in UK, need a lot of skill in terms of, apart from the educations. I know there are certain education level required. So when they come over here as a carer, I know it's totally the different scenario,
Mm.
the different weather and different speaking country, and the different people who you are going to work, and the different food culture. There are a lot of difference than your home country. So if you are working as a carer, if you take that as an opportunity to educate yourself and gain an experience as much as possible, then there is an opportunity for you everywhere, because in a care sector, wherever you go, you can find the job easily,
Right.
because there's a big scope for
Yeah.
the overseas or whoever who willing to work in a care sector.
And I think you've sort of hit a nail on the head with me there. Willing to work. That little tiny phrase,
Yeah.
that's something that I personally feel there's a lot of people are quite happy to ignore that phrase. But I just want to repeat that. Willing to work. And you said before, I was working 7 days a week. That's what you said.
Yeah.
I was working crazy hours. Another thing that you said. But there are some people, even people who listen to our podcast, who say, "Well, that's not fair. You shouldn't make people work 60 hours or 70 hours or whatever it is, or you shouldn't make them work 7 days a week." And you hear the language I use, you shouldn't make them. So, being honest, the employer that you were working for, or maybe still are working for, that had you doing 7 days a week, what was it, like a gun to your head? You have to do this, or how did that come about? Like, how did you wake up one day and just go, "Oh, I'm going to work 7 days a week"? Like, what was your thought process to even want to do that, or were you forced to do it?
Well, that's why I use the phrase willing to do. I am happy to work when I'm fit and when I am free here. That's why I didn't bring my family over here at first. I advise those who are looking for a work in UK, first come on your own,
Right.
settle down, work for 3 or at least 6 months, get your good pay slip, get your nice house, bring over your family. Then they are going to be in a proper place. Don't let your family be settled in a small box room. It is illegal in UK.
You've really just struck a little nerve with me there. I just took a breath when you said that because, as many of the people know who listen to the podcast, I'm into property. And one of the things I noticed when people started coming to work for my company from overseas, I would show them around our properties and say, like, it was like an HMO, which is a house for multiple occupants, really big room. You could easily fit a large king size bed in with many other things. I say, "Oh, this is £500 a month. It includes all bills." And they were like, "Wow, that's really expensive." And I was like, "Expensive? That's really cheap. Even in the UK, that's cheap."
Mm.
And what was ended up happening is some of our staff, they are sort of renting a really small room for £500 a month, but their entire family live in that room. And then next door in another room, there's another family. And then next door in another room, there's another family. So the landlord is typically charging between £400 and £600 a month for one family to live in one single room. And they seem happy with it, but actually it's illegal. You can't do that in this country. Um, and usually the landlords, I'm very sad to say, are usually from overseas themselves.
Mhm.
I see many shop owners, in particular corner store owners, doing this exact thing. It's a good way to make extra revenue and also get cheap staff to come and work for you in your store as well. I actually have had many conversations just like that. So when you are looking for housing, what you were saying before about, get 6 months pay slips behind you, get some good salary, then bring your family over. I think that's tremendous advice, and I certainly give that advice to our overseas workers before they arrive. I tell them the exact same thing. I know there's been a change in legislation now, so the government won't let care workers bring their families over. But for anybody who's an overseas worker, I would suggest exactly the same thing. Get 3 to 6 months behind you before you then bring your family, because then you can get a nice house for them to settle in and be very happy in. So thanks for that. Um, so now you've sort of settled into the UK. Are, th- are there any other barriers, like from your point of view, that you're happy to ask me about, and if I can help, I will.
Well, yeah. When it comes to credit score, it sounds so weird name, for the overseas workers because we are not accustomed to this. Because as Sri Lankan and I would say most Indian and Sri Lankan,
Okay.
as I'm taking as an example, is because most of overseas workers are from these Asian countries,
Right.
especially from Sri Lanka. Let's take about myself.
Hmm.
We are not accustomed to borrow a lot of money from banks. We don't do that usually.
Okay.
And if you also won't do that, what the bank look at in Sri Lanka, whether have you got a good job to prove your pay slips
Mhm.
and what collateral you have got. Have you got an asset or land or whatever,
Right. Okay.
mortgage, you know?
Very different here then.
Yeah.
Hugely different. Okay. So credit score then.
Yes, credit score is another topic I would
Okay.
like you to explain, please.
I can give you a brief synopsis of credit score. So when you arrive in the UK as an adult, you can start to develop your credit file relatively quickly. You would need some form of government ID that would help you along the way. So your passport from your home country is absolutely helpful. Your e-visa from the UK Home Office, UK Visa Immigration, is very helpful. But also, I would strongly recommend, as soon as you arrive in the UK, applying for a UK provisional driving license, because that will be a UK government issued ID, and that will open up all kinds of opportunities for you in the future. Obviously, as well as driving, it's a really good form of ID. Why is this important? There are credit bureaus that most lending houses in the UK operate from. They use the data from Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. They are the main three. And they collect all of the financial data about you and they share it with other people who you apply for credit with. So when you open a bank account, for example, there may be a credit check done on you. And if you're new to the UK, you have no credit. So it's very difficult to get a bank account sometimes for an overseas worker for this reason. So they get online bank accounts instead, like Monzo, Revolut, Tide, those sorts of things, Starling. However, when you've been in the country for a little while, you can get a high street bank. I'm not particularly endorsing any bank. I'm just saying this from personal experience that Lloyd's tends to be the bank that most of our overseas workers bank with. So it seems to be a little bit easier for them to get a bank account from Lloyd's. Straight away, though, Lloyd's will record and will send off to Experian, Equifax, or TransUnion, or one or more of those three. They will send off a profile to say whether or not you're managing your account well or not. Every month, you will get a report about that. After a couple of months, you can download free of charge. It's an app on your phone, whether you're on Google Play or whether you're on Apple, and it's called Clear Score. One word, Clear Score. This is totally free and it will give you your credit report. Your credit report is really important. It is like your grade card from high school. You can imagine when you come home to your parents and they are seeing your grade and you get an F for fail, they are very unhappy with you, right? Your credit score is very much like this. The higher the score, the better it is. So typically, scores are between 750 and 900 maximum, depending on the credit bureau that you use. But let's say 900 is what we're aiming for, or 999. You need to get your score as high as possible so that in the future, if you wanted to buy a house in the UK, or if you even wanted to borrow money to buy a nice newer car, you would be credit checked. And the better your credit, the cheaper the credit will be. So, for example, you could have a credit score of 450 and you could still get credit to buy a car, but it would cost you 20% interest. Whereas if you had a credit score of 900, you could get the same car with an interest rate of only 8%. So you would be paying hundreds of pounds a month extra if you have poor credit. So, how do you get good credit? Number one, get your government ID, which is your driving license, a UK provisional driving license. I encourage everyone to get that. It's a great form of ID that you carry around in your wallet. Number two, register to vote. So when you have a property that you're going to stay in for a long period of time, not necessarily the first week you're in the country, but when you're going to stay in a property for at least 6 months, maybe a year, register that property to vote. It's totally free. You can register to vote online with gov.uk. Just type into Google, register to vote in the UK. It will ask you for your name, your date of birth, your home address, and it's very, very quick. It takes less than 10 minutes. You might have to provide some ID later on down the line, but you have that already. And that's it. You're registered to vote. Just doing this will give you up to 100 points straight away. At least 50, but usually 100. After a year, you'll get 100 points. That puts you on the credit rating register because you have a bank account, because you have government ID, and because you have the voters roll now. You can go to credit card providers, and if you use the ClearScore app, they will give you a list of credit cards where they say, we guarantee you will get a credit card. Usually it's some challenger credit cards like Capital One, which charge a lot of interest, Aqua, or any sort of New Day product. They charge 40% interest. Marbles is another one. However, because you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to give you some great advice. What you do every month, whatever the credit limit is that they give you, that's the amount of money you are allowed to spend on the card. So let's say it was £200 just while you're starting out. It might be a very low limit just to see how you manage. Spend no more than 20% of that £200. So in this case, £40. Okay? No more than 20%. You spend £40 on it. And then when you get your statement at the end of the month or whenever your statement date is, you pay that balance off in full. Okay. And after 3 to 6 months, you will notice your credit limit will increase rapidly. It will go from £200 to maybe £1,000, maybe from 1,000 to 2,000. All you do is you readjust your 20% figure. So if it's gone from 200 to 1,000, what's 20% of 1,000? It's 200. So maximum you spend is 200. You don't have to spend it, but maximum is 200. And then at the end of the statement month, you pay it off in full again. And that's what will keep on building your credit up. And by the time you've applied for indefinite leave to remain, if that's your wish, you can buy properties here because you can get a mortgage from the bank. And they will look at your credit history and say, well, you've been banking for 5 years with no problems. You have had credit card for 5 years with no problems. And now we're prepared to loan you money. And it could be either a personal loan. You could probably apply for one of them after 2, 3 years, maybe to get a car. And then eventually you can get a bigger mortgage application, maybe 100, 150, £200,000 mortgage to buy property here. So there's no rocket science involved. You've just got to pay everything off in full from your credit cards every month without question. Never miss a date. Just pay it off as soon as you get your statement. And don't go over 20% of your credit limit. Just keep doing that. Pay it off in full every month. You'll be absolutely fine, and it will give you opportunities. I don't know, Nish, have you ever had any of those experiences yourself, or have you not? Are you new to credit? Have you got any experience?
Well, as I bring this topic, I want to say my own experience, then that would help for the people who are listening to this. So when I came here, I didn't know about this credit score, to be honest, because I thought it's very easy.
Mm.
I can go to ask the bank to give me a loan or the credit card, whatever I need, which is totally incorrect. So what I did was when I download my credit score, it was very, very low because I don't know what are the process that I had to go through. So as you said, exactly, I got my credit card for the higher interest. Then I use my credit card, 20% of my credit limit that I paid every month. So as you said, exactly same. They increase my credit limit rapidly. I have enough credit limit at the minute for my essential need. Even I can buy my flight ticket if I want to go back to my holiday.
Can I be cheeky, Nish? Can I ask what was your initial credit limit and what's your credit limit now, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, yeah. It was starting only from 300.
Okay.
Now end up with 3,000. Just, just
How,
within
and
4 months,
how long did that take?
only 4 months, 4 to 5 months, I would say.
Wow. Okay. So from 300 to 3,000 in 4 months.
Yes.
Wow. Are you comfortable sharing the type of provider? I obviously don't want any account number details, just the provider, just so as an example, we know.
Yeah, I use Clear Score to monitor my the credit score. The Clear Score will give you the suggestion where I can borrow or get a credit card, and also I got a certain amount of loan just to develop my credit score.
Right.
So that was so easy for me to grab a loan, which is fairly enough good money actually.
Okay. So if you don't mind, it's up to you. You can say no, but is it okay to ask the name of the credit card company that you went with in the end?
Yes, of course. Yeah, yeah. It is actually the very first credit card was Marble.
Marbles. Okay, so that's a New Day product. So charge very high interest, right?
Yeah, but I never paid interest because I paid all the time on time.
That's exactly right. As long as you pay it off in full every month, the interest is zero. So
Zero,
don't be worrying about the interest rate if you follow the advice.
of course. Yeah,
Brilliant. And you said that was the first one. Have you got more than one?
yeah. I got a couple of more now. Anyway, I'm listening.
Well, as
So,
long as you don't go crazy and you only stick to the 20% rule. And I got to ask you, I can sort of do maybe a little bit of reveal. Who has been helping you to do all of that? Who gave you the guidance to get your credit and everything right?
of course, from my boss.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So,
It's because that's another experience actually. There was a staff came actually pop into my office yesterday and she was asking, she couldn't have a one credit card. She would like to have a credit card when she's running out of petrol or whatever, the essential needs. I said, very easy. What my boss told me, the same I taught her. I let her to download the app. I let her to apply the same credit card. She applied it and she said yesterday she got approved because it's triple lock credit card. I said, nothing to worry. It's not going to affect your credit score. You just apply for it and got it. And she got it finally now. So she will get her credit card within 2 days physically by hand.
brilliant. Do you know which one it was that she got in the end?
I don't remember the card actually. Yeah, it happened only yesterday. So
You've touched on something there, the triple lock within ClearScore, which is why I recommend it. They will come up and they will say, we recommend these credit cards. And where it says triple lock, that means you're guaranteed to get the card as long as you've been truthful in all of your answers. So
mhm,
telling them the right salary, telling them the right address, your date of birth, your name legally as it appears on your documents. As long as you've been honest in all of those things, they guarantee you will get that card with the credit limit that they say and
yeah,
also at the interest rate. But the interest rate doesn't matter because it's 0% for you if you pay it all off in full every month. So that's a great story. Thank you very much for sharing that.
you're welcome.
Um, the other thing I talk about regularly, particularly for people who are coming from overseas, because we've mentioned it very briefly, is when you come from overseas, it can be very difficult at first adapting and acclimating to a new country, to a new set of cultures, a new set of values. So very often we sort of withdraw ourselves into the people that we already know. So it might be if you come from Sri Lanka, you find other Sri Lankan people. It
Mhm.
might be if you can't find any Sri Lankan people, you'll say, okay, well, my religion is X, might be Muslim, might be Hindu, might be Buddhist, it's up to you, Christian. So you go and find other people who share your religious values. And that's fine. That's a good way to start. But professional networking is something that nobody really seems to understand at this moment in time from the overseas community when they first arrive. They sort of go with what they know, which is very limiting. Now, one of the things I recommend is find something that is of interest to you that you can generate a side hustle from. That's what this is all about, right? The lazy wealth network. Lazy wealth creation is about finding something of interest. So I run a property network, and you say to me, oh, Carl, I'm interested in property. Fantastic. Come along to our network. It's very friendly. It's very easy to engage with people. If you're new and have got no experience whatsoever, you're just as welcome as if you had many years of experience. We welcome everybody. And you can learn real valuable skills just by attending the networking events. And even if it's just people meeting each other type of networking rather than education as well, you still get to expand your network. You can say to people, oh, I'm in your case, I'm Nishi. I'm from Sri Lanka. I work in the care sector, and in the UK, I'm interested in dot dot dot, whatever it is that you're interested in. And you'd be surprised how very rapidly you can increase your professional network and your social network as well. And that's equally as important because you may, when you first arrive, just sort of want to stay in a community that you recognize and you understand. But by going out there and speaking to people from all over the world, because the UK is filled with all kinds of people with all kinds of different beliefs, cultures, and values and religions, you can actually enrich your own lives. And I don't know if you've got children in yourself, but I've got children. And one of the things I've actively encouraged them to do over the years is to meet other people and talk to them and learn from where they came from, their values, because there might be some really good lessons in there. So, have you ever done any networking yourself, or no? Is that not so? I don't know.
That's a good point, to be honest. Actually, that wasn't in my mind to speak about at the end, but you already get that point now. So, networking, I would say, again, I'm taking myself as an example, then people can understand easily. So, as I said, I grab a loan. It's because just to develop my credit score. That's the motive. But same time, I can't keep that money in my account, can I?
Well, I wouldn't recommend it because you'll be losing money on it.
I wouldn't do that either. So I was, or I'm still looking for the opportunity or looking for the place where I can invest it.
Right.
For that, I can't blindly go and invest it here. As I said, there are a lot of scam,
Mhm.
possible scam in UK.
Yes.
If it's in Sri Lanka, I know where I can invest it.
Yeah.
I know the ROI, ROI, yeah, when what the percentage I would get against the investment and where can I do, and I can analyze myself as I'm origin from that country.
Yeah.
When it comes to UK, it's quite difficult for me to choose the place or choose the industry to invest in.
Mhm.
For that, we definitely need a networking
Yeah.
forum or whatever it is called, because we call it in a different terms in Sri Lanka. So networking sound like a big thing, but it's exactly the same what we do in Sri Lanka informally, but something happening here is formally. So I'm looking forward to engage myself in kind of a forum where I can network myself with the different professionalism of different business opportunities.
So on that note, I mean, one of the things I would recommend for people like yourself, Nish, is there is a platform called Eventbrite, which you can Google. It's free to become a member of Eventbrite. It's free to set up an account,
Mhm.
and you can search anything at all that you have an interest in. So if you were interested in fine art, you can find exhibitions, you can find networking groups, you can find education groups on fine art. If you're
Mhm.
interested in property, it will come up with all the property networking in your region, of which we are there as well, by the way. So some of them will be completely free to attend. You've just got to buy a ticket for nothing and then turn up, and they just capture your email details and keep in touch with you that way.
Yeah.
Others are expensive. Some can be several £100s. Ours is on the very low end. It's £15. And that's obviously talking about property and professional development. So you can do that relatively secure in the knowledge that Eventbrite is a trusted platform. That doesn't mean every speaker is a trusted speaker. And many speakers, when you go to free events, may try to incentivize you to part with money. So there are lots of free property courses and lots of free property events that you can attend. But at the very end, they're sort of like, okay, now you need to pay me £2,000 and we'll send you on to the next level of the journey. I don't actually endorse doing that until you've built up a relationship with that network where you can feel confident that the people actually achieve. Particularly in the property space, there's lots of property courses available, but nobody ever talks about the success rates with data. They'll say, oh, this is John, and John did our course 5 years ago, and now he's a property millionaire, which I believe, but they might have trained 3,000 people in the same space, and they have a 1% success rate. So it's something that you have to be mindful of. Really do your due diligence, do your research. And again, we're going to have forums like this where you can come and ask us questions because it's great being able to get some answers from people who've got no skin in the game. You can ask me a question and I'll hopefully give you the answer. But if you want to give me £2,500, Nish, I'm quite happy to take the money from you. That would be great. So the other thing as well, just on that networking, is one of the things I learned not too far ago was some of my staff have got really great skills that we can actually redeploy within the business itself.
Mhm.
So I had one of my guys, I think it was about 3 days ago, come to me and said, "By the way, Carl, did you know I'm a graphic designer?" I said, "No." He said, "I do graphic design, and I do web design." And he'd mocked up a website for my company and he'd mocked up a load of leaflet designs for the company and I was blown away. You know, he works as a carer in our service, but here he is doing his side hustle. And I love people who would do this because this is the, I know I say it's lazy wealth. I know there's a process to follow and I know it's a bit harder, but here's a guy who goes to work, comes home, doesn't put on the TV because he told me he doesn't watch TV. And he is working on how can I increase my side hustle? How can I get more customers? So he's got a couple of Indian restaurants that he does the marketing for, and he's trying to get me on board as a client. And I absolutely love that. I don't know if you've got any experience from overseas workers coming over here and maybe having a side job. Has that happened, or is that just, am I just a lucky one?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. Actually, as I said, all the carers are not just a carer; they are with the multiple qualities on them. So that's why I said they have a everyone who is a carer, they have a bright future.
Hmm.
I know caring is a passionate and they do it. They love to do it. But same time, their skill and the knowledge, they have it in a different sector too. So it's a right if they find the right place to network themselves, then they can market this and they can find the right opportunity to invest in future too.
Yeah.
So I have come across a lot of the highly skilled quality staff. They are not just a carers, but they are fascinated about care, but their professionalism is a totally the different sector.
And I think, Nish, you've really touched on a point there that I want to sort of open that up a little bit more in just before we close up for the day. That people say to me, "Well, Carl, how come you've employed this person if they were a school teacher back in India, or how is it that you've come to employ this person who is an engineer from Bangladesh if they're now a carer?" So, like, why is that? And I think for me, it's because they recognized an opportunity.
Mm.
They said, well, the UK doesn't need an engineer. The UK doesn't need an English as a foreign language teacher. But what they do need are carers. So I'm
Mm.
going to take my experience, I'm going to maybe park it just for a short while whilst I go to the UK, I learn this new skill, I develop that skill as a professional carer. But in the background, they've got this calling in their mind. I still want to be an engineer. I still want to be a teacher. So they start developing their side hustles based on the skills and the experience they have. I know some of the guys who they're takeaway drivers, but they're engineers back in India
Mm.
and they come to work for us as carers, and then they on the days off they go and do takeaway deliveries, you know, because they recognise that that's what the UK economy wants. That's the value that they add to the economy. Lots of people want takeaways.
Yeah.
I agree with that or not is irrelevant. They recognise that there's opportunity to make money there relatively quickly, but yet they can't be a teacher because they haven't got the license, they haven't got the correct qualification conversion in English. So they say, okay, I won't be a teacher. I'll be a fast food delivery driver then while I'm not being a carer. It's just the ability to overcome obstacles and look at opportunities. I think there's a lot of valuable lessons that overseas workers can teach the rest of the UK population actually, because they're not entitled to any handouts, they're not entitled to any benefits whatsoever at all,
Yeah.
and they pretty much you're on your own when you arrive in this country. It's either you sink or you swim. So the fact that they go, okay, I have my salary from my care job, but now I have 2 days off, or now I have a day off. How else can I make money? Can I use my existing skills like the web designer, graphic designer, or I can't use my teaching skills or my engineering skills, but I can drive a moped and deliver pizzas and fast food to other people who are sitting at home. I mean, surely there's a valuable lesson there for anyone.
Yep. Like as I said, I'm still again taking myself as an example. I wasn't from a care sector before. I am from a finance background. I'm a financial accountant for more than 18 years. I would say more than 17 years. As a
Wow.
professional, I was a financial accountant, yeah, who managed the overseas fund in Sri Lanka for
Wow.
many, many years. So I took all this experience and apply in my current job. That's how I convert myself.
Have you got, can I just ask this? Have you got any sort of professional qualifications at all?
Yes, of course. I do have my MBA in finance. I got this qualification from UK Cardiff University, but I studied from Sri Lanka while
Wow.
I was working.
So you got an MBA, a Master's in Business Administration, for those who don't know, which is a master's degree, right?
Yes.
From Cardiff, did you say?
Yes.
So really good university, really good degree, master's level educated, and you're working as a carer. How did that, why didn't you come and work in the financial sector, which clearly, you've got the pieces of paper that one would expect to do really well in this country. What was the reason?
The very first reason you already mentioned, there are no accountant needed in UK, as far I understand. All right.
Right.
Okay. So it doesn't mean that I fade away from my professional. It's still there. I studied for my own, own skill purpose. So
Yeah.
my experience and skill still there. But I grabbed the experience and the skill from the past work and my studies and I apply in my current job. It
Right.
doesn't mean that I'm totally broke into my
Yeah.
professional. I can still do financial accounting. I can still do my own things. I can still consider and develop a financial accounting firm or accounting firm in future here
Yeah.
while I'm working in a care sector. I'm contributing to UK economy in terms of different job I'm doing here, but not as an accountant, but as a different role. I'm bringing money into the economy.
Yeah. I think, though, a lot of people in the UK who might be listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, there's a real valuable lesson here, and that is I see a lot of people with ego, say, oh, I work as a really important job, or I have a really high degree. I have a degree in business management. I have a degree in engineering. Therefore, I'm not prepared to do a job that I see as not requiring those skills. I might see those jobs as beneath me in some way. But actually, there's some real contrasting view there from an overseas worker's perspective. They're going, yeah, I am an engineer. I am a financial accountant, but I recognize that's not what the UK needs. So I'm going to fit in with what the UK needs. I'm going to fit in. Then I'm going to look for the opportunity. And that's a really powerful lesson for me and for anybody who's listened to Lazy Wealth. That in itself is worth its weight in gold. It doesn't matter what pieces of paper you have, it doesn't matter what experience you've got. You have to find the value that other people want. And if the value that other people want is something that you go, oh, I'm well more qualified than, being able to do that job, then you need to be looking at yourself and your own value system and your own belief system because you must offer value in order to gain wealth. And you and colleagues like you, Nish, you've cracked that code. And this is stuff I talk about all the time. You need to see what value can I bring to the table. You've been willing to say, well, okay, there's no financial accountant positions in the UK right now, but there's care positions. And while I'm doing the care, I can be working on in the background my other things. And it sounds like you've cracked it. You've got your credit score sorted. You've done your education to a master's level. Flipping heck. I wish I was as motivated as you when I was a bit younger. I would have been in a very different world than I am today. But really, just in summary, Nish, just to come back, please, for the overseas workers who are listening, I hope this has been useful for you. And for the non-overseas workers, I hope particularly this last part has been massively helpful to you in terms of being willing to take that step back and look for the opportunity rather than the opportunity cost. You go, oh well, I'm an accountant and therefore I should be able to earn £1,000 a day as an accountant. Well, sometimes you have to step back and go, no, I'm willing to work for minimum wage while I build,
Yeah.
and that is an incredible lesson. So I have to bring it to a close now, Nish. But I just really would like to say, on behalf of all of the listeners and the viewers, how very grateful that I am for your time today and really sharing this tremendous insight that I think many people could learn from.
I'm really pleased and pleasure to have a chat with you today, especially about the experience I had, which is really, I hope it will be really helpful for the listeners, that will help them a lot in their own life. So I'm happy to be a part of maybe a life-changing point for them. So really helpful.
Right. I think you're right, mate.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to speaking to you, no doubt, in the near future. Thanks, Nish.
Thank you so much.